There's so much going on right now. The elections, the Supreme Court, now Trump has COVID. I've let one topic slide by though. Our degenerate cultural decline. We had the outrage over the movie Cuties on Netflix, a pedophilic film sexualizing young girls. Then there was the disgusting WAP song by Cardi B. Why does the United States have such an awful culture? These conversations always play out the same way. A right-leaning person will bring these things up. Maybe they'll suggest that you cancel Netflix. Then the disgusting leftists who consume this garbage respond. You know who like to censor things? The Nazis. And guess what? They were right-wing too. Of course, the person on the right is usually actually some sort of liberal or libertarian. It's Jeremy Hambley, or Tim Pool, or the numerous other people who they are entirely interchangeable with. They'll be like, yo dog, go woke, go broke. Not my fault if people are choosing not to buy your SJW trash. As an actual conservative, my response is different. This conversation isn't about censorship. It isn't about consumer choices. I shouldn't need the government to protect my family from things like this. If that's the point we've gotten to as a culture, our society has already failed miserably. Now, there's no law against picking up a turd you find on the sidewalk and eating it. However, if people are regularly doing this, I would say that we have a bigger problem on our hands than the government's lack of action on the issue. Let's say you're an artist or an entertainer. You can view yourself in one of two ways. The first is that you are an artist inside of a larger community. The other way is to view yourself as independent of any community. As someone who at least tries to entertain people on YouTube, I like to view myself as part of a community. Sure, my channel is not for children. I'm perfectly willing to say butt-fucking assholes, troll leftists, or make jokes on this channel. What I won't do is try and disgust or gaslight or manipulate my audience. Sure, I'll talk about politics, but the main focus of this channel isn't even politics. It's virtue ethics. I don't care if you watch my channel and it only makes you hate conservatives and President Donald Trump more. The message is live virtuously and you'll be rewarded. Most contemporary artists and entertainers aren't like myself. They don't view themselves as part of a community. They don't want the responsibilities of that weighing them down. Even further, most contemporary artists and entertainers have developed a hatred towards the concept of community life. They create art that aims to chip away at the very concept of community. Why is this? Well, since the 60s, our country has transitioned from a series of local cultures to a national monoculture. In the last 4 decades, we've had this further push towards a globalized culture. Let's suppose you want to sell a product called popular music. Well, traditionally, the music that was popular in Nashville, Tennessee wasn't also what was popular in Chicago. They had different music communities with unique traditions. As the company that's trying to sell popular music, these communities of music are annoying. You want to sell the same music everywhere. You don't want music artists or consumers to belong to different communities. You want individual consumers that aren't connected to any community. So popular entertainment has always promoted themes that are destructive towards community. Hypersexuality, raunchy humor, unorthodox families and sexualities, prolonged adolescence, atheism, drug use, globalism, and autonomous individualism. Look at any popular young female music artist. Britney Spears was an example when I was growing up. As they get older, everything gets more sexual. Eventually, it becomes completely gross and degenerate. If you read interviews with these artists, they'll always say that these ideas came from the promoters. They didn't want to produce this oversexed trash. They were pressured into it by the people funding the music. When the community pushes back against these things, the community gets attacked. You don't like it? Don't watch it. What, are you pro-censorship? Do you hate America and the First Amendment? This sort of fuck you reply to anyone who criticizes this garbage has itself become hard-coded into our popular culture. Artists today produce art that is deliberately more extreme, offensive, and disgusting. The TV show South Park was famous for this. It reveled in the criticism it provoked. After all, this would allow them to lecture us about their rights under the First Amendment. Audience who consume this type of popular culture came to expect this. They're titillated by the thrill of seeing cultural norms torn apart. But it has to always get more and more extreme. Otherwise, people just become desensitized to it all. With little left to shock and offend people with, pedophilia now appears to be the next taboo on the table. Cuties and Desmond the 10-year-old are all examples of this. If you believe that authentic, real culture can only be rooted in a community, this is a massive problem. It would mean that the United States doesn't have a culture at all. Instead, the United States has an anti-culture. Our culture is one that celebrates the constant destruction of culture. Even worse, we've been exporting this toxic anti-culture all over the world. Let that sink in for a second. The United States is destroying all of the world's cultures. It's replacing them with consumerism in Avengers merchandise. Do you not believe me? Okay, describe to me the culture of Phoenix, Arizona, or Round Rock, Texas, or any newish suburb. And no, saying things like freedom or individualist doesn't count. Liberalism isn't a fucking culture. Consider this indie film which came out last year. A Muslim teenage immigrant in the UK has trouble fitting in with his new culture. Wow, I'm real surprised by that. Well, you've got two options there, kid. One is you can adapt yourself to the new culture. The other would be to embrace your cultural inheritance of your family and its faith. Instead, the protagonist embraces Bruce Springsteen music, mass-produced pop music from an entirely different country that he doesn't live in or has never been to. Of course, his Muslim father disagrees with this. Now, are any of you familiar with the lyrics of the song Blinded by the Light? No? Okay, well, it's about a guy who lusts over and then has sex with a woman with a boob job and then consumes drugs. But I mean, they use the funny language, so I guess that makes it okay. Anyways, the protagonist breaks ties with his family and goes to New Jersey to read a speech about Springsteen music. Then his father forgives him for no reason and embraces the Springsteen music as well. Wow, what a great story there. This movie is a great example of anti-culture. That's because its entire purpose is to celebrate the evisceration of actual culture. Pay attention to the movies you watch and you'll see these same themes all over the place. So what is it that we can do about this? First of all, we ought to promote real culture which is actually rooted in an actual community. Participate in local events, local restaurants, local bands, maybe even local theater productions if they're not overrun by progressives. Avoid spending money at chain stores or Amazon if possible. And yeah, you should probably cancel Netflix. We also ought to push back against the anti-culture. I wouldn't hesitate to tell someone that I don't consider Marvel movies to be actual culture. I have no problem saying Cardi B is degenerate. That's not me calling for censorship, nor is it me trying to moralize to people. There is no genuine cultural content in that song. It was written to titillate a mass audience by subverting actual cultural norms and appealing to people's sexual appetites. By its very design, then, it is degenerate of actual culture. That's by the definition of degenerate, and it's not a moral judgment. Anyways, that's all I have to say about the cultural degeneracy of US culture. If you enjoyed this video and you're not already subscribed to my channel, please support small YouTube channels like mine by subscribing. Thanks.